Putin wanted a northern buffer zone. Instead, he got a very expensive funeral pyre. In a desperate gamble to secure the border near Kharkiv, Russian forces crossed a massive red line. But they didn't just secure territory, they walked straight into a kill box. Ukraine didn't panic. They executed a counterattack so brutal and coordinated, it's pushed Russia's elite units all the way back to the Belgorod border. It turns out, when you walk into a trap, the buffer works both ways. Only this time, it's the Russian front line that's collapsing. Welcome back to Geopolitics Decoded US. I'm Marcus. If you prefer your global briefings served with data, logic, and a complete lack of propaganda, you're in the right place. Today, we're breaking down the collapse of the Vovchansk front and the asymmetric tech that is turning the Russian military machine into a pile of scrap metal. Before we decode the Belgorod trap, take 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button. It keeps this channel independent and puts the tactical briefings directly on your feed. Now, let's see why Putin's northern strategy is shattering. The Belgorod trap, Russia's buffer blunder. Let's look at the map. The objective was the Vovchansk buffer zone. Sounds intimidating, doesn't it? It sounds like something from a Cold War thriller. But in reality, Russian forces found themselves overextended, undersupported, and frankly, completely outplayed. It's like trying to host a high-stakes party without inviting anyone, and then wondering why the house is empty. Only in this case, the party involves heavy armor, and the guests are FPV drones. Ukraine didn't panic. They did the exact opposite. They launched a counterattack that forced Russia's so-called elite units to retreat toward the Belgorod border with their tails between their legs. It's the classic military failure. You try to occupy land without the logistics to hold it, and you end up giving the enemy a massive, moving target. By pushing back to the border, Ukraine has effectively nullified the entire northern offensive. It wasn't a tactical withdrawal. It was a full-blown collapse of the plan. Putin wanted a buffer. Instead, he got a very expensive border patrol, and his soldiers are the ones doing the patrolling. The asynchronous nightmare, when tech hunts you. But how did Ukraine do it? It's not just grit, it's next-generation asymmetric warfare. Russia still relies on massive electronic warfare, EW, to jam drone signals. It's their bread and butter. They've spent billions on systems designed to make the sky silent for drones. But Ukraine has moved past that. We're talking about fiber-optic drones. You can jam a radio signal, sure, but you can't jam a literal physical wire. It's like bringing a gun to a knife fight, only to realize your opponent has a very, very long fishing line connected to a guided bomb. Then you have AI-driven turrets and relentless FPV, first-person view, strikes that pick off Russian armor with the precision of a surgeon who's had way too much coffee. It's a brutal combination. Russian tanks are being systematically dismantled, not by mass artillery barrages, but by small, cheap, and terrifyingly smart systems. If you're a Russian commander in a T-90 right now, you aren't fighting a war. You're being hunted by a digital hive mind that doesn't care about your jamming equipment. It's not fair, it's not chivalrous. But then again, nobody ever said a counterattack had to be polite. We are moving into the deep game now. We've seen the front line crack, but the real damage is being done where Putin can't even see it. We are about to decode how Ukraine is effectively strangling the Russian military by cutting off the oxygen, their supply chains, 160 kilometers deep behind enemy lines in Mariupol. But before we dive into the logistics blackout, I have a question for the war room. Do you believe technological superiority, the drones, the AI, the fiber optics, is enough to win this war? Or is there a human factor that tech just can't replace? Decode your thoughts in the comments below. I'm personally reading the sharpest takes and I want to know who's paying attention. If you value this kind of tactical briefing over the usual talking head news, hit the like button and subscribe. Help us build the sharpest community on YouTube. Now, let's talk about how to choke a war machine. The logistics blackout. DoorDash from hell. While the northern front is crumbling, Ukraine is simultaneously strangling the Russian war machine in its sleep, 160 kilometers behind enemy lines in Mariupol. If you think of the Russian front line as a fist, then Mariupol is the arm. And right now, Ukraine is busy dislocating the shoulder. Deep strike drones are picking off supply depots, rail lines, and command hubs with the kind of consistency that would make a delivery driver jealous. It's hard to run a high-intensity offensive when your DoorDash order for fuel, ammo, and spare parts gets canceled permanently. Russian logistics are essentially running on duct tape and prayer at this point. Every time a supply train goes up in smoke in Mariupol, those elite units at the front line become slightly less elite and slightly more sitting ducks. I honestly don't know what's funnier. The fact that Russian command actually thought they could hold this line without a working supply chain, or the fact that they're still surprised when their ammo dumps turn into fireworks displays. Putin's strategy isn't just shattering, it's starving. And in modern warfare, a hungry army is just a group of people waiting for their inevitable retirement. The asymmetric revolution. Russia built a fortress, Ukraine built an app. This is where the history books are going to get interesting. The Shogol and Belgorod events aren't just tactical wins, they are a preview of the new reality of asymmetric warfare. For decades, military doctrine taught us that expensive always beats plentiful. We were taught that a billion-dollar tank, a multi-million-dollar fighter jet, and an elaborate radar network would always win. But Ukraine is proving that theory is officially a relic of the 20th century. When you can trade a swarm of $50,000 AI drones for a tank that costs $5 million, or a stealth jet that costs billions, you aren't just winning a battle, you're winning the math war. The Kremlin built a fortress of iron and concrete, hoping to hide behind their safe zones. Ukraine didn't build a bigger hammer, they just built an app that found the cracks in the fortress. We are witnessing the end of the era where size and cost determine the victor. We are now in the age of the digital hive mind. If you're a Russian general right now, you have to look at every square inch of your territory and wonder, is there an algorithm currently staring back at me? It's not just a technological shift, it's a software update for military history, and Russia is clearly running on a version that hasn't been patched in 30 years. The export nightmare, a billion-dollar PR disaster. Beyond the tactical smoke and mirrors, there is a much larger headache brewing for the Kremlin, the global arms market. Russia has spent years marketing their gear as the rugged, reliable alternative to fragile Western tech. But after the Kharkiv and Mariupol disasters, that sales pitch just became a very hard sell. Imagine trying to sell a billion-dollar security system when a teenager with a DIY drone just walked through your front door and toasted your best hardware. The destruction of these high-end assets proves that even Putin's most guarded gear is vulnerable to low-cost, asymmetrical threats. For potential buyers in the Middle East or Asia, the question is no longer, how much armor does it have? But, can this thing survive a $500 drone while it's sitting on the tarmac? This isn't just a military failure, it's a total brand collapse. When your top-tier, invincible gear is being dismantled 1,700 kilometers away from the fight, you aren't just losing equipment, you're losing your reputation. The Kremlin's untouchable sales pitch is gone, and with it, the confidence of their future customers. The asymmetric revolution, the final verdict. This counterattack is a definitive turning point in modern warfare. It marks the moment when strategic depth, the literal thousands of kilometers of land that once broke Napoleon and Hitler, was rendered obsolete by clever code and carbon fiber. Ukraine has proven that cheap AI drones can bypass the world's most sophisticated electronic warfare grids to deliver a devastating blow to the heart of a nuclear superpower. Hiding aircraft in the Ural Mountains can no longer protect the Russian Air Force. The cost of war has shifted, and the power dynamics have been rewritten. We are now living in a world where a multi-billion-dollar fleet can be paralyzed by a hive of autonomous systems that never sleep, never get tired, and never miss. Russia thought they were playing a game of traditional chess, moving heavy pieces across a massive board. Ukraine just showed up with an AI that's playing a completely different game, and they're winning by simply refusing to play by the old rules. It turns out, Russia is running on a military version that hasn't been patched in 30 years, and the update is, well, it's coming in the form of an FPV strike. So here we are. The buffer zone is a bust, the logistics chain is choking, and the Kremlin is probably currently auditing their entire air defense budget, with a calculator that probably doesn't work. But what do you think? Is this the end of traditional military doctrine, or is the Kremlin just having a really bad quarter? Decode your thoughts in the comments below. We're building a community of strategic minds here, and I want to see whose analysis is sharpest. If you found this briefing more insightful than the usual sound bites, do the algorithm a favor. Hit the like button and subscribe to Geopolitics Decoded US. It's the best way to stay ahead of the next major power play on the global chessboard. And for those of you who want these briefings on the go, don't forget to find us on Spotify. We're taking the deep dive strategy to wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm Marcus. Thanks for standing watch with us today. Stay safe and stay strategic.